Welcome to the Enterprise Builders Podcast, powered by P3, where we feature top industry leaders discussing what it takes to build a profitable company and stay on top. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. My name is Aaron Stahl. I'm the CEO and founder of P3 Cost Analysts, and I'm here today with Chris Atkinson. Chris Atkinson is a good friend of mine. I've actually known him for a long time, and he is our longest running franchisee as well. So I've known Chris for a while. I'm excited to talk to him today, doing our little mini series on some of our more successful and longer tenured franchisees. So I'm excited to hear more about you, Chris. I know a lot about you, but hopefully we can pick apart some new things, share your story, let everybody know a little more about you personally. So welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Appreciate it. Yeah, excited to be here as well.
Right on. All right. Well, I want to start with some personal questions, and then we can kind of dive into business. I think it's important that everybody understands the man, the myth, the legend, Chris Atkinson, and here's about some of your quirks that make you good at what you do. So why don't we just start with where you're from and what it was like growing up?
Sure. I'm from Hot Springs, Arkansas, about 45 minutes outside of Little Rock. I've got a brother and sister, grew up in Hot Springs my whole life. My dad is a dentist and a business owner, and sort of that's where I got my probably original interest. My parents worked together in his dental practice, and the typical, I guess, Southern, upbringing. Went to the lake and really enjoyed the water and sports activities, that kind of stuff. It was a great childhood.
And if I'm not wrong, I believe you were a high school basketball star of sorts there in Hot Springs.
Well, yeah, I mean, I knew how to block out and rebound, and so that's why they liked me. But we had a great team, played good fundamentals, and so it was that was the big sport that was probably that I was best at. So yeah,
very cool. So as you've gotten older, you've gotten into some other hobbies and interests. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of that? The stuff you enjoy doing now.
Yeah, so water's been the big theme for me my whole life. My dad was a scuba diver himself. We've got a lake not too far away from where we live, and that's where we got to start. And then he introduced us to ocean diving, and I've always loved sharks and bigger fish and animals and seeing all that kind of stuff. And so that's really what has my interest. And I spend a lot of, when I'm not working, doing family stuff, where's the next opportunity to go see some big animals and big fish. And it's been P3 has been a great deal for me. And you and I talked about this a while back. It's just the opportunity to do what you want to do in life. And, that's what's really made me take the leap into P3 in the first place. And, we just got back from, my family decided to take a month off and go basically work remote in Florida. And we sort of went around the whole state of Florida and visited 5 different spots and got to see reef sharks. I've got a 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they really have caught the bug that I did growing up as well. So I'm excited to see what it looks like for me in 20 years, 30 years when they're taking me on these trips, like I take my dad on these trips these days. So.
That's great. Well, it's kind of a good segue into my next question, because my next question was going to be, let's hear about some of the crazier things that you've done. And I'm also curious if your kids would be joining you on some of these in the future.
Yeah. So we did a great white dive. Have you ever seen Shark Week? We got in the cages where they feed the great whites. That was an amazing experience. We got to see a 15-footer. I've never seen, I couldn't have described it to you, the actual event. It's just nothing like seeing them on TV. We've done tiger sharks. That's probably the wildest one, where there were just sharks everywhere. And you got the blood pressure really high because, there's no way to get away from them if, one of them wanted to get a hold of you. But that's it's just, I enjoy it. I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm definitely, as I get older, trying to temper back the risk taking and make sure I make educated risks. So,
That's
but
great. Well, I love hearing about that because I think it's also indicative of your personality in business and how you've been successful in business development, P3, et cetera. So we're gonna get more into that, but appreciate you sharing. So I want to hear a little bit about your business background and just kind of, I don't know, take us through college to the first few jobs that you had.
yeah, so I was trying to think about this a little bit too. I had always sort of going into college wanted to be a business, own my own business, do my own thing. I've always been independent and did a couple business projects, business plan projects. And so we did competitions. First one was like a boat washing business. Again, going back to the water in the lake is sort of where I derive a lot of the stuff from. But that was quite an experience. It was good to get a feel and understanding of a team and manage that kind of stuff. But then after that, I got in the real world and realized that, it's one thing to have an idea and it's another thing to actually implement it and go with it. And so my first job was with a tile and granite guy. I did sales for them. And you learned a lot about what, I didn't like about working with people because it just wasn't a friendly environment. And then I fortunately got on with a TV sales crew local to Northwest Arkansas, where we went to college in Fayetteville and just had an amazing experience. It was me and a group of basically 6 women, and they would call me, they nicknamed me HM, or high maintenance, which is comical because I was the least high maintenance of all of them. And so it was a great experience. I really loved it. But, just continuing to look for the opportunities where I was always one to say, hey, how can I get residual income? How can I get businesses that grow by themselves and not me grinding it out every day? And that's what that business was. It was like I said, I loved every minute of it, got some great connections. But then it was on to a company called Heartland, which did payment processing. And that was my first real opportunity to get residual payments, and did that for about 8 or 10 years. And it was awesome. It was probably my real first foundation of the businesses that I used to sort of catapult me into P3, which was just a great segue. And then I'm still today getting residual payments from that business. And that's sort of what I look for. And that's why I was willing to transition to P3, as I saw big opportunities for something that wasn't currently being done in our region, something that had, nice margins in it, and was just a good opportunity. So.
Great. Yeah, and I'd like to provide everybody a little color here too, because let's see, Chris and I met, would it be our senior year of college, in a SAKE class. It was called Students Acquiring Knowledge Through Enterprise. And so we would basically run this business in college, and then whatever profits it had, we could go take a trip. So we were selling like diploma sets and pictures of the university and people's names on it. And so it's a pretty cool little opportunity to get into business. And Chris was certainly the lead salesperson in that group of people. He was an enigma, a very outgoing guy, just would basically accost people on campus and get them to buy a diploma set. It was pretty fun to watch. So, we'd interviewed Shannon recently, and Shannon's certainly the opposite, certainly not as, as an aggressive of a salesperson. I'd say I'm somewhere in the middle. So it's, I just want to provide a little color there. Chris is, I think, kind of a natural, if I would say, in business development, talking to people, planning products and services. So it's been cool to watch. And so we were friends from there. And then as P3 started to take off, at least in our waste and recycling categories, Chris was brought on board, or he joined forces with us and really helped bring in quite a few deals, and then converted to a franchise later down the road once we converted to a franchise almost 4 years ago. So and this is a clarification I want to make, because I told Shannon, and this is true, that he got his franchise paperwork in about 4 hours before you did. So while you've been with us longer, or worked with me longer, he's technically the first, but you've certainly been around the longest. So anyway, funny little technicality there. But I want to hear, I want to hear a little bit more about how you got started, specifically in the cost reduction space, and how you built your portfolio of business up to what it is today. Any tactics? Just give us the history, walk us through everything.
Yeah. So, like we were talking about a little bit ago, the company that I did payment processing for years, I just had opportunities where, for me, it really was about making relationships, taking care of people, and providing them a good product, something that at the end of the day, they could say, Chris took care of us. And, I learned that early on in Heartland, because, I saw some people just, hey, get them in there, charge them as much as you can. They leave you great, you can re-sign them. And it's just not a good way to make friends and have a business in general, because you're quickly going to be kicked out of town or have to move somewhere else if you're going to keep going. And so that was sort of the mantra that I developed early in working with the payment processing company. And because of that, it led me to the opportunity to present other services to these business owners that I had relationships with. And Aaron came to me, and I was in the middle of, I think it was one of my bigger months with the payment processing company. And I had just had my boss come and say, I felt like I was done with that month and I was moving on to the next month to make sure I had revenue sort of saved up, so I wasn't scrambling around. And then they were like, hey, I need more business so that I can meet my goals. And I was just sort of fed up with, that kind of mentality. And Aaron came to me and showed me the waste service component. I saw the real opportunity with that. I saw we talked about a large Sonic group that I'd gone in and tried to sell services to, and wasn't really successful because their systems were proprietary. And then he later told me what he had done after I'd helped make somewhat of a connection that he'd run with. And I was like, man, this is just an awesome opportunity. And so from there, it was just presenting that service to him, going in with the relationship that I had, and it was a no-brainer. So I have additional stuff that I was going to share on that, but I'm trying to make sure I don't jump off the questions.
No worries, man. Yeah, it's great. That Sonic client you're talking about is still a great client to this day, one of our longer running ones. So, definitely appreciate that introduction. I remember that deal vividly. That was still a friend to this day, and signed up with us the same day I walked in the door, and we saved him quite a bit of money. So that was very cool. So getting back into building your book of business, because I got to witness it. You were very efficient at adding new accounts. I know you had existing relationships with some of your previous business development roles that you had, but I want to hear just maybe more about specifically how you went about building your business, any day-to-day routines, rituals, that sort of stuff.
Okay, perfect. So for me, it's really a week. I sort of block it off week to week. And when I get up Monday morning, my week or my first thing is, hey, who can I go work with today that I can provide value to, that maybe is ready to sign something and move forward? Because just like, growing a crop, you have to plant the seeds, you have to water them, you have to hope that the weather doesn't destroy them, and then harvest them at the end of the day. And so that's sort of what starts my week off is, hey, who do I need to go talk to this week that's most likely to say yes to letting me help them in some form? And then the next level is, who can I get to that next level of saying yes? And I make sure to prioritize those people, because it's just so easy, and with everything that's going on, to get bogged down with activities where you're spinning your wheels and you don't have success. And so that's probably one of the biggest components that I use. Another big one is face-to-face. I tried during the pandemic. I tried, through all that stuff to emails, automation, those kind of things. There's just no substitute for going and seeing somebody face to face, pulling them out of whatever activity that they are doing, and that you've got their undivided attention. It may only be for a split second, but it's sort of depending on where you are in the process of working with them. It may restart the conversation. It may hammer home the opportunity where they're like, okay, I need to go, do this with you now. But it's really, that is probably my biggest takeaway, not from the last 2 years, but just in general, over my career, face to face, really, there's no substitute for it.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. So what were some of like the biggest pitfalls or mistakes that you would like to share, you feel like you learned from when you were really gearing things up in this business?
For me, it really is a continuation of and evolution of what I've previously done to try to get more efficient and effective. And so I wouldn't say that there was this huge pitfall or anything like that I've particularly had. It's just, if you're looking at that I was telling you about earlier, I was transitioning away from one business where I was an employee, where they, wanted to get every ounce of, blood out of the turnip that they could, and just unhappy with that. And so for me, it was burning the candle at both ends. I was still doing that job because I had a young family. I wasn't willing to switch over because I needed to make sure I had the income. And so it was building the book of P3 business at the same time that I was doing Heartland. And so I would work nights and weekends to make sure that if there was anything that I could do on the other side for P3, I was doing that. I was making the phone calls and I'm doing paperwork at night on both businesses, so I could get P3 up to a point where I could transition over full time and have that as my future. So that's probably the biggest trial and tribulation that I would say that I had, but it was well worth it. And all you need is, at the end of the day, good motivation. And I've been through the ringer on a number of these things, and so it gave me the motivation I needed to sort of put everything together: the entrepreneurial spirit, the gumption to do what I needed to, and the clients that I've been taking care of for the last 15 years. So.
Yeah, that's great. That brings up a really good point that I certainly want to take a moment to talk about, is that when you get into business for yourself, or when you do some entrepreneurial endeavor, the whole point is that you're going to sacrifice early for more later, right? So you've got to put in the work, the extra work now, for more opportunity and time and money down the road. And so you were just talking about working 2 jobs, nights and weekends, really building up your revenue stream because you had a family to support before you were able to, go full time into what we do. And then, also as you've grinded and worked over the years, I know the last 2 or 3 years, you've really been able to, like you said, work remotely for a month, take some time off, focus on other things, investments, that sort of thing, which is just really, I think, why we all were attracted to this business opportunity in the first place. I know when I got started, I was really young, I was 22. I didn't have any of that overhead or things to worry about. So it was easier for me to live within my means and do this full time. But that being said, I didn't take any vacation for 3 years. And I don't think that's going to be, I think that's probably unique to me just because I didn't have a ton of money. Whereas some other people maybe getting into this business have some more financial wherewithal that you don't have to grind it that hard. But it is good to hear, like how you really grinded it out and then reap the benefits down the road. So appreciate you sharing that.
Let me throw something else in there too.
Yeah.
that I've learned as well. It's been interesting to watch because, like you were talking about Shannon and other folks, we've had other people come on that they land these massive companies, and I never imagined, hey, that would even be a candidate. And so it truly is a diverse group of people that can be successful at this. All I can share is my story. And that's what I tell many of the prospective franchisees. If I talk to somebody, I can tell you what I've done. I can tell you how I've been successful. but there's multiple ways to be successful in this business.
Yeah, that's 100% true. I mean, yeah, when I tell people, like, if you looked at Chris's portfolio of clients, which I don't know, is it probably 120 different clients ish right now? You really wouldn't recognize a lot of them as far as from a name brand. In fact, I'd say you wouldn't recognize 95% of them. You know, obviously some of them are franchisees with bigger brands, but this is definitely not a business where you have to go out there and sign Coca-Cola or anything like that. So you're right. And then simultaneously, some franchisees are able to work those connections and get some of those bigger deals, and it doesn't take but a few to generate some great income. So you're right. Everybody's got their own kind of path and story. And I think, you know, to even get more specific, I think your story kind of started with a couple different verticals and then just referrals, getting passed around those either franchise groups or certain business sectors like apartments or restaurant groups. So you've done really great work in those referrals. And I think that's leads me to kind of my next question, or I want to get some thoughts on. We always talk about being our client's trusted advisor. You touched on it earlier. Obviously, we're not wanting to just go in there and get a deal and then leave the client and churn and burn like maybe some of the other people did in some of those other industries that you got started in. And so I'd like to hear about how you, maintain those relationships. If you're able to circle back to them, help them with additional products or services that we offer, et cetera. Just talk a little bit more about that, because obviously people wouldn't be willing to give you referrals and grow your business if they didn't like you and you weren't helping them. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. For me, again, it starts with just making sure that I bring them something that's beneficial to them, that's been tested, that, we know that would be good, or at least is a good possible candidate to present them value. And sort of the approach of talking through that stuff with them is a long-term relationship. And, that's the beauty of developing these relationships over multiple different businesses that I've worked with. Is it takes a while. It's not something that you do overnight. And at the end of the day, I just try to put myself in their shoes and say, would I want Chris or this other person to come present this stuff to me? And I'm also willing 100% to say, hey, this is not a good service or product. I don't think this is beneficial for you. You should go this way instead of that way. And it's sort of, I guess you could call it authenticity, because I guess they don't get that a lot, which is shocking to me, that you wouldn't have a salesperson or somebody come in and say, hey, this is not a good fit for you. I don't think this will benefit you. And that's probably it at the end of the day, just that mindset and mentality of trying to put them first and then make money second.
Absolutely. And along those lines, yeah, I think when you have a good product or service and it's going to benefit the client, there's some natural, obviously, desire to get them to yes, to help them out, to really show them what we're able to do. And I know you've got a special brand of tenacity. And so I didn't know if you had any stories to share, any thoughts around, examples of the tenacity that it took to land a deal or two.
Sure. So I was trying to think about who is probably a good candidate. I'm not saying names. I was trying to figure out if we need to say names or not, but we have a large franchisee group that we worked with. We started with KFCs, and we got a couple smaller franchisee groups. And then one of the guys told me about this massive one that was, 80 locations compared to the 15 to 30 that these other guys were. And this guy just would not meet with me. It was Stonewall. And I drove up there multiple times and then finally got a toe in the door. And it took us probably a year and a half of just following up, talking to him. And then finally he was willing to let us try a couple, and we were successful. And then just like, in many instances, you take care of somebody, treat them right, you develop a relationship. And so you and I have been up there to see him multiple times. We had a great relationship with him. he's since sold all his locations, and we still email. He's actually sold it for millions and millions of dollars, and he actually gave me a call because he's opening up some new businesses. And so, again, it's just that taking care of people, being willing to put in the time and energy. But that was a very profitable deal. I mean, we worked with him for 8-9 years. I think he was one of the, original candidates that we worked with, but it was definitely a hurdle to get him to that point where he'd work with us. And what was hilarious was the franchisee that gave me his name. He was shocked that he agreed to work with us at the end. And sort of like, if you can get him to work with you, then you can get about anybody to work with you. So.
Yeah, he was a tough nut to crack, but he's been a really cool guy to have a relationship with. I remember running into him in a restaurant, and next thing you know, we're having drinks together. So he's a character, and that's a great example. All right, moving on. Let's see. I want to know, and I touched on this a little bit earlier about how you really grinded it out early on. You've been able to have some more time to do other things, but without putting words in your mouth, would love to hear how owning a business or this business has changed your life or changed you.
Sure. It goes back to, for me, the freedom and flexibility to do what you want to do in life. And so P3 is given the revenue stream that gives me the freedom to go on the month-long vacations or plan different events, or if, hey, it's just not a good week or have some family issue. I have residual income and those clients that are going to pay long-term each month, that I'm not out selling an individual product. And so that's changed my priorities, changed my goals and my focus. And I think too, with as you get older in time, you sort of reevaluate what's important to you and how you want to live your life. And so that's probably been, again, the biggest thing is the time and the ability to breathe, so that I can look around and say, here's my, point A to point B where I want to go. Whereas with Heartland, with my previous companies where I was an employee, it was head down, go make your budget this month, burn up the roads, a lot less strategic thinking. And so that's been the biggest difference, and day and night even for me. So.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I guess fortunately, I never had to go through that. I just got into business right out of college. But I can imagine what a feeling it would be to really crush it one month for a company, and then basically day one of the next month, like, what have you done for me lately? And you're starting over. I mean, that's a pretty, I don't know, it sounds like a tough position to be in. So I think being able to build whatever you're building for yourself obviously is a big deal. So I guess moving on to the last couple of questions here, what advice would you what advice would you offer anyone considering getting into business for themselves?
So again, goes back to me and my experience. It goes back to, what do you want out of life, and what are you willing to risk or go through to see success? And I've always sort of had that mentality. I think college, high school, it was just a willingness to do what it took to be successful. And then, it can also be a detriment too. Like you were saying, it is. I'm a bulldog chewing on a bone that won't let go. On the flip side of my personality, if I focus on one area too much, and maybe don't focus on some other areas that I should, and lead a balanced life. And, that's the pros and the cons of who I am and what I do. But, for me, being a business owner was just a clear and easy path forward, because my personality, because of who I am, because of what I value, and sort of my goals that I set for myself. And so I would say you need to take an internal look. If you're willing to do what it takes, it's a life commitment. It's like another child or another partner. You have to, take care of them. Sometimes they come first, unfortunately. But that's the beauty of it, is once you get it going, then in many respects, it's not as time consuming, and as requirements aren't as much. And so then from there, if you've got the commitment, you're willing to do what it takes, it goes into building your client base. You either have one, like I was lucky enough to have built one over these other businesses that I've worked with. And that could be existing clients, or it could be friends and family that you know that can put you on to somebody, or just true tenacity to pull out the phone book and just start going down the list. And again, I guess it goes back to the willingness of making it happen and being successful at it. Because if you're willing to do that stuff, you will be successful.
Great. Yeah, appreciate you sharing that. So to wrap it up, I like just to ask everybody, what's a couple business books that you would recommend everybody to help expand their mind or make them better at what they do, or better in general?
Ooh, deer in the headlights here. I'm trying to think what would be a good one. One of my big folks that I really follow is a guy named Ray Dalio. And, just his philosophies and the way he looks at the world. It's not really a business book, but the last couple of years, I've really, like I said, tried to step back and breathe and try to understand how everything works. And so I've spent a ton of time on understanding the work that he's put in. He's got some amazing books. Man, I may have to get back to you on that one.
No worries.
Like a deer in the headlights.
I know what Ray Dalio about. I think it might be called Principles. I can't remember the title of it, but
yes, Principles is one of them.
Yeah.
He's got a bunch of short videos, The Economic Machine, The Changing World Order. It's all eye-opening to me, and was like really pivotal to help me get a grasp on not really business, like running my business day to day, but understanding the dynamics of the world and how it works. And that's helped me to better understand, what I personally need to do to fit in there. So,
yeah, nice. I like the little New World Order conspiracy theory thing right there at the end.
Have you seen that video?
I have not.
Oh, it's just the changing world order. Like sure. You have. We're getting off on a tangent here.
I'm just messing with you, but no, I appreciate you sharing all that, Chris.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, that's really all the questions I got for you today. But obviously, really appreciate you having or being on here today, being on the P3 podcast. So again, We've got Chris Atkinson here, one of P3's longer running franchisees. Really has done well building his business, and very excited to have had him on here today. So, Chris, appreciate you sharing, and have a great weekend.
Thanks. You as well. Enjoyed it.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Enterprise Builders Podcast. See you again next time, and make sure to click subscribe to get updates on future episodes.